Welcome to Agency for Agents, a podcast for real estate team leaders and independent brokerage owners looking to maximize profits, effectiveness, and gain freedom for their team and business. Your hosts, Christine Andreasen and Aaron Hendon, have been running one of the most successful real estate teams in the Seattle area for more than 8 years. They know building a winning team means finding ways to empower, nurture, train, and develop individual agents to discover their own power, their own agency. On the podcast, Christine and Aaron interview thought leaders in real estate and personal growth to help you impact both your performance and your teams. We know it takes a lot, and leaders and brokers that crack that code reap the rewards of success greater than any they could ever achieve on their own.
All right, well, welcome to the show, everyone. Our guest today is Chris Miles. Aaron and I are both super excited to have Chris be on the show today. Chris is the founder of Money Ripples, the host of the Chris Miles Money Show, and co-author of the book Entrepreneur on Fire. I love it. He helps people quickly create wealth by increasing monthly cash flow and creating what is Aaron and I's favorite income, passive income, right? Chris has been featured in U.S. News, CNN Money, and bankrate.com. There you go. I got that out.
Easy for you to say, see.
Yeah, exactly. Many clients have the option to retire in less than 5 to 10 years. And Chris himself, Chris, I loved this part. You've retired twice now, right?
Yeah.
Retired twice by the age of 39. So one of the things we're so excited about is that Chris is passionate about helping entrepreneurs and high-income employees as well be financially prosperous, right? And fixing their money leaks and creating passive income. Great. So Aaron and I are super excited to be with you. Welcome to our show.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Great, Chris. Oh, well, let's just start. I'd love to get a little bit of the origin story. You went from being a sociology major over at BYU, and now you are a wealth creating expert, retired before 40. How'd that happen?
Yeah. It's funny you said BYU because I actually got accepted at BYU twice and turned them down twice, know?
Oh, you didn't go to Brigham Young?
Nope. I went to Utah Valley University, which is kind of next door, right? But that's the funny thing, they both had the top 2 world championship ballroom dance teams, right?
Really?
That's what drew you in, huh?
That's what drew me in. Yeah, I was a horrible dancer in high school, but then I started to do ballroom dancing in college and transferred over to Utah because they had the 2 best teams. And
oh, wow.
I got bored staying a week at BYU. I'm like, okay, that place sucks. I'm going to this other place. I've never even been there. I'll just go to this other university, right? And in fact, they're the ones that won Dancing with the Stars about 10, 12 years ago. And a lot of those were the people that actually helped train. Like I was even coaching their team a little bit. Wow. And it's funny because I went there. I was. You said a sociology major, right?
Yeah.
But I was also a triple minor in ballroom dancing, Japanese, and psychology.
Oh, well,
those just go so well together.
Yeah, exactly. Why not, right? So I was kind of a Renaissance man of sorts, and that's it's been my gift and my bane at the same time, Yeah. But yeah, my whole intention was to become a business owner and to essentially become a business consultant to teach people how to get their businesses to be more efficient, walk out with a big check and move on. Well, I figured if I'm going to be a business consultant, shouldn't I have real life business experience? So I said, all right, I'm going to take a sabbatical. I dropped out with 1 class to go for my bachelor's, dropped out and was trying to figure out what to do as a business. And the first one that came up that intrigued me was being a financial advisor, like the mainstream, salesman in a suit financial advisor, right? Commission only. I didn't know anything about money really, other than I took a few banking classes in high school and stuff. So I know how to write checks, which is totally applicable in today's world. So I went that route.
Fax those in. Yeah, sorry.
That's right. You got to fax them in, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I started doing that and I really liked it. I liked being my own boss, right? I wasn't great at it. That's the thing. I still had a learning curve. I sucked at business for several years, but I enjoyed it. So I dropped out of college and never went back. I did try to go back 5 years later, but then they wanted me to take a year and a half of school. And I said, forget that. Sociology majors don't make that much money. But I was a financial advisor, that traditional mainstream one, for 4 years. Mm. And I'll tell you, when I was working in that agency and stuff and working that brokerage, I like evidence. I like to know that things work. And over time, I started to realize, I said, wait a minute, the people I'm getting, like the ones I'm helping, as well as the ones that have had decades of advice before, aren't financially free. And it kind of bugged me, right? Because I was like, well, why aren't they doing it? And I realized the stock market wasn't as high as they said it was. It's only returning on average about 8.3% for the last 30 years, which is good. That's a high average, right? Usually it's around 7 to 8%. Well, the market wasn't doing 10 or 12 like I thought it was. On top of that, inflation's higher than the government tells us it is, right? We see that even today, especially with the real estate game. So we're seeing all this stuff that I realize that the numbers don't add up and people aren't becoming financially free. In fact, it's impossible to become financially free saving your wealth in mutual funds, right? But again, I was like, well, still, like my pocketbook's tied to it. Well, flash forward, end of 2005, I'm talking with a friend that I trained in that business that left to go do real estate investing. So him and his dad partnered up to do like flips and things like that. Well, guess what? We talk and I think he's going to be broke, right? Nope. Opposite happens here. I was like, how are things going? He said, man, things are amazing. My dad has actually doubled his income from being a professor, actually in that case, at BYU, right? So he doubled his income doing real estate versus being a professor.
Wow.
I said, that's only been 4 months. He's like, I know. And I, of course, said the usual thing that most people say, especially with us in real estate, which is, well, that's too good to be true, right? And he's like, hey, we're doing it. And so we got this argument, what's better, stocks or real estate? And he finally stopped me and said, Chris, how many of your clients are financially free where they don't worry about money? Not retired, but they're not worrying about money. I said, none. And even the retired ones worry about money, especially if you turn on CNN, you're going to worry about everything, right? Yep. He's like, well, that's not good. Good job, Chris. How about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing the investing you've been recommending? This would be very much like asking, get you guys realtors saying, hey, are you actually buying real estate or are you still renting out of your parents' basement, right? Like that kind of thing.
Right.
And he's like, well, how many of you guys are financially free off the investments, not off the commissions? And I thought about it. I said, well, even those guys from the late 70s, they're still working their tails off, and they've been doing it for 30, 40 years. So maybe none. He said, there is your problem. I was like, well, give me the answer. He's like, I won't give you the answer. You just got done arguing with me, Chris. Why would I give you the answer? Well, come on, give me something. He's like, all right, if you're really serious, and I don't think you are, so the perfect takeaway, reverse psychology on me, right? Like He had me salivating, and he wasn't even selling anything. That's a great thing. He just was, pissed off. So he says, no, he's like, Chris, go get this book, Who Took My Money by Robert Kiyosaki, which says that mutual funds stink. I just saved you 3 hours on audiobook. And then go listen to this radio show on AM Talk Radio with these two real estate investors, right? And I did, and it got me hooked. And the next thing you know, I'm like, I'm quitting by March of 06. I quit being a financial advisor. I just went to go be a mortgage broker because in 2006, anybody could be a mortgage broker, right?
Right.
If you remember those days, that was fun.
That turned out well, didn't it?
That went, yeah.
Stated income for everybody, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I did that, and I was teaching ballroom dancing at the college and stuff, just on the side. But I wanted to know how they did it. And so I started following some of the footsteps of these guys that were retired millionaires, some of their 20s and 30s. And long story short, I became financially independent the first time by the summer of 2006, which shocked me. I didn't think it would be that easy. I was thinking I'd have to scrimp and save until I was 40 to then finally live on the interest of my mutual funds, save up $2 million and live on really less than the interest, right? And then I might have a $60,000 a year lifestyle after saving up $2 million. And it wasn't that way at all. It was always about the cash flow. It's about how do you get passive and or residual income coming in where your money works because for you versus you always working for money. I mean, long story short, just so you know, the second time I retired, the only reason there was a second time is because I screwed up, right? I basically went through the last recession. I started gambling on my real estate instead of focusing on cash flow, which got me there in the first place. I started getting a little prideful and a little sloppy.
Yeah.
So between that and business and everything else, I found myself in the hole over $1 million and had to dig my way back out of that. And talking about trying to struggle with scarcity and such, that was a huge time, but didn't file for bankruptcy, but I did come back where by the end of 2016, I was financially independent.
Great. And so you're talking, so this financial independence and the cash flow is really from your real estate investing.
Yeah, exactly. Real estate investing and then also residual income from your business, right? It's like with you guys, like now, if you're not a broker, it's a little bit tougher, especially if you're an agent, right? But I learned one thing I learned in the mortgage business that was interesting is that, when you're in scarcity, you think that you got to take 100% of everything, right? So If I was a mortgage broker, I'd have to do it all and get 100%. If I was the life insurance guy, I'd have to do it all. If I was selling mutual funds, I'd have to do it all. I wouldn't split deals with people very often. Well, one of the ideas I got from one of those millionaires, he asked me, because he went to the core. He said, if money were no issue, what would you spend your time doing? And that time, at first I said, well, I'd probably travel. He's like, really, Chris? You're going to spend 52 weeks out of the year traveling? That's not going to exhaust you? I said, okay, now it's a little extreme. You're right. What would you really do, Chris? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I love teaching dance. Like, I love teaching. I would probably teach ballroom dancing. He's like, awesome. Well, let's do that, And he's like, do you like doing mortgages? I said, well, I like teaching. Again, I always love teaching. That's my main thing, right? I love teaching them and getting them the strategy, but I hate paperwork. I hate dealing with that. And you guys deal with more paperwork than I deal with, even today.
No, we don't.
We're smart like that too. We leverage everything. Aaron and I do what we love, and the team does all the rest, right?
Exactly, right?
I don't know how mortgage brokers do it. It would make me nuts.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's a beautiful thing. We now have DocuSign. We have all this technology that makes it so much easier than it used to be, right? Easier. But yeah, that's why. But I said, yeah, I hate doing the paperwork. He said, find someone who loves doing it. Right. I said, does anybody love doing paperwork? He's like, there are nerds out there that do.
There are Excel. Yeah, people like that.
Right. Yep. And so I found a guy and I said, hey, if I refer business to you, and basically they're already ready to do the mortgage. You just have to do the application and all the underwriting and everything else. Would you split me 50-50? And the guy said, yeah, of course, because he didn't want to have to market. That wasn't his gift. I said, great. I'll teach them. I'll send them up to you, to say, great. Now match them up with whatever kind of, mortgage we want to set them up with. And voila, a month or so later, I'm getting a check for $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $2,000, whatever. There were small mortgages back then when the prices were lower, right? But I was still making at least $1,000 to $2,000 per deal. And I might have spent a half an hour with them. Sure. And that got my brain going. I was like, what else can I do? How can I create more leverage, right? So yeah, I was doing real estate investing. But I realized my business, because I quit being a financial advisor. I didn't want people to come to me for financial advice, but they were still asking me questions. Right. So I said, well, if you keep asking me these questions, may I refer you to somebody who will do that stuff? And I'm like, cool. Can we work out a deal? Can we work out a referral relationship? If it's like an attorney, you can't do that very well, right? Because they've got their licenses and stuff. So you don't do it for those kind of industries. Same thing with, brokering real estate, right? If you're not real estate licensed, don't do it for realtor, But if you are, like, can we leverage people? So that's kind of how it sped it up, because I had money coming in from there and I had money coming from investments. And it was like this 1-2 punch.
So what'd you do with it? So one of the things, Aaron and I both love EXP. We changed brokerages because they're so much into passive income, which we adore. Yeah. But we have two avenues. We have our stock in the company that we are growing, that they give us, and we buy at a discount. But we also have revenue share, which is any deals of anybody, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But then what did you do with it? Did you take all of your monies that came in and put it back into the real estate game?
Yeah, that's what I started doing. Now I started to do things like I finally bought a car, things like that, So I spent some of it, I started to increase my lifestyle, but yeah, it was like, I've got money coming in more than I ever experienced before, which was amazing. And the thing is, I was working only a few hours a week. Doing that kind of stuff. It was like I was working the 4-hour work week before Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-hour work week, right? Or co-authored the book with me on that Entrepreneur on Fire book, So that's the thing, is that it was such a huge epiphany that it was always about streams of income. How do you get that money coming in regardless? And I knew about doing that in an agency, because I had the ability as a financial advisor to do the same thing and hire people and create an override off that and stuff. But it was always focused around me. When I started to switch it around, like the key thing I learned from these guys, it wasn't about the strategy. The strategy was the natural byproduct. It was always about the principles. What are those true principles that work in business, with money, always, right? What are those eternal, never die principles? Right. So the one that I kind of internalized was dollars follow value. Right? So the more you try to create value, like add value in people's lives, serve them, solve problems. If you focus on that, not on the money part, you focus on trying to serve people and solve problems. Money is an easy natural byproduct. It's simple and it's formulaic. And it was so simple and so easy. I'm like, whoa, money's flowing in way faster than it was me just trying to, have that, like we were talking about before we got on the air, that commission breath, right? Where you're reeking of it and people are like, I don't know why, but I just don't feel right about it. And I'm like, why not? It makes sense. Come on. Here's my business card, like start flying at them, it's cutting them up. And You don't want that, so you really come from that abundant mindset and a service mindset. And when that happened, it was so easy to make money, and I didn't have to work hard to do it. Yeah, I guarantee you, if you come from a place of scarcity, you will work at least 3, 4, 5 times harder making the same money as you would versus coming from an abundant state of mind.
100% agree.
Yeah. That's, that training our agents, the new agents, and having people get into that world around, abundance, and that there's plenty of business, that you're not going to do business with everybody. You don't need to do business with everybody. You can do business with the people you want. There's more than enough, right? There's more than enough slices of the pie out there. It's
even in this market
all the time, everywhere in life. Life is abundant. I really do. It's not even like I believe that. Like, I don't believe in gravity. I don't have it's just what is, that there really is plenty. I think it's great when you look at, what do you say to people, or, how do you empower others? What do you say to empower team leaders, to empower others, or with your team? Any conversations you have around that, like to really either free people up so that they are focused on abundance, or just to have them become more effective?
Yeah. Now I'll tell you, I'm not the greatest team leader in the world, I'm really good at being like that individualist, like that person that just kind of takes it on. I do my thing and do my specialty, my niche, really my divine genius, right? Mm-hmm. And then let them do theirs too, But I think the thing that's really common is that, one, you got to live with what you want to attract, right? You got to be that person. I'm always amazed that, I remember I used to attract just fakers, right? Like just total posers, it was like Bon Jovi in the 80s, kind of a poser, not really a rocker, but he looks good, right? I'll admit that was the first music I bought when I was a kid, but it was Bon Jovi. But that's the thing, is like, you don't want to be a poser and a faker, because if you do, you attract other posers and fakers. And so you become who you want to attract on your team and who you want to inspire. If you want somebody who's abundant, you want somebody who's someone who's actually going to willing to take responsibility, you have to be that person first. Because if you don't, nobody else will. And so that's what I've noticed. Like, I'm actually hiring a new CMO for my company right now. And I'm blown away at the candidates and the ones that don't want to work with me, which I'm happy with, because we just don't jive. Like, you want that culture to fit. You want to make sure that you guys value the same things. You don't have to be carbon copies, but you do want to have people that value what you value, have a vision of where you're going, and then, of course, match up on the characteristics too, which I'll just tell you, like those internal characteristics of like that grit, right? That perseverance. You can't really train somebody for that. You can't really say, hey, are you perseverant or not? It's just, if you're that person, you will naturally gravitate to those people and they will gravitate to you. And so the best way to create the best team is you be first and foremost the best team member yourself.
Yeah, it's great. All right, well, I have a question for you. What's an action that you take? I know for myself, and I think Aaron as well, we have a particular morning ritual to get ourselves set up for our day. What's an action you take every day that you think contributes to your success?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's the same action I did when I was over $1 million in debt, trying to figure out how to get out of that hole. When I was in the hole, like $16,000 a month, I was short between my business and my personal expenses and versus my income. I do a daily routine. Everybody has their own version of it, like their morning ritual. Tony Robbins calls his the hour of power, right? I call it power hour, but for me, I do that morning routine where I focus on what I call the 3 E's. There's exercise, education, and enlightenment. So like, for example, I got to get up. I can't do the enlightenment first because I'll fall asleep, so I can't like meditate. I can't pray and that kind of stuff. So I'll exercise, get my body and my blood pumping. Then when I exercise, a lot of times I will pray, or I will do like prayers of gratitude, just giving thanks for everything I can possibly count, like count my blessings, right? There's not much better way to get yourself in such an abundant state of mind than just having that prayer of gratitude, also like I said, meditation, prayer, going in the education side, even while you're exercising, you could be doing things like audiobooks. You could be listening to podcasts like this right here, like just feeding your mind as well as feeding your spirit while, really improving your body. And by the way, just because I'm like doing marathons and training for that doesn't mean you have to go do something crazy on the exercise side. It could just be a brisk walk in the morning, just something to wake yourself up and be alive. do that. Don't go for like the stupid cup of coffee first thing in the day, because that doesn't work. Like, so many people roll out of bed, they don't do anything, right? They just kind of roll out of bed and just start hitting the ground running. They're answering their emails or checking to see what drama got created by what lender or appraiser or whatever it might be, right? Like, you don't want that. Like, you got to start it out right, not being in tune with that, getting a win on your chart. Do that first, and then everything else just falls into place. It's almost like it just like magic. It's beautiful.
That's great, Chris. I mean, that is funny because that's exactly how we start our day as a team, after my morning, miracle morning, that's certainly what I do. But then we get on our team huddle, and the first thing we do is wins from yesterday. All we want to do is hear about the wins from yesterday. And I never put it exactly, I didn't have it the way you're saying it, like connected to intention of starting the day with that. But that is really why we do that. And or the opportunity of doing that is to have wins be present for people. That's really great. And I think that's a really important way to empower others is, have them get present to where they are winning. Build from there, build from what's working.
That's true. I should probably make that a requirement of my teams. Like, you guys, every morning, you got to be doing this. If you're not, we're already losing.
It really is, though. It's interesting because we, obviously, we do this podcast, and every single person we talk to, this is for uber successful people. We don't just have anybody on here, right? And every single time, everybody has a morning ritual. Every time without fail. I just don't think you're going to meet somebody that rolls out of bed at 8:30, grabs a cup of coffee and reads email for a half hour and is successful. It's not the way to be when you're a baller. You've got to get your mind right.
Yeah. By the time you wake up, especially if you're just dragging out of bed and you're just drinking your cup of coffee and then you drive to work probably on an empty stomach or whatever it might be, or a quick breakfast. I mean, it takes you almost till past lunch before you're finally productive. And by that point, you're like at 2:00, you're like, I got a few hours, I got to start cramming it in. And then you become a baller. But if you can be a baller first thing in the day and then you just kind of coast and just sail, like that little, it's like pedaling a bicycle, right? It's really hard to pedal at first, but once you get it going, it's like, okay, now I just keep that steady pace. It doesn't feel as much exertion, but I'm going fast.
Yeah. We always look at it like the, rocket ship, if it's off a degree at launch.
Yeah.
You're never going to get there. So getting your day started on point, makes the difference. Very cool, Chris. I really, obviously you give a lot of advice in your podcast and your show, and that's, you're the anti-financial advisor, giving people this and that. What's the best advice you ever got?
The best advice I ever got. I mean, other than that dollars follow value, I mean, that changed my whole being, because I was always a giver, but it was not just about being a giver. It was also about being a receiver too, but always trying to over deliver, right? Give more value than what I expect in return. Like, the key was I had to also ask in return. That was the key. Because imagine if I went to that other mortgage broker that was doing all the applications saying, like, hey, I don't need anything, just help me out, or I'll just take 10%, 20%. Like, no, like I was willing to split it 50-50 like it was a partnership, which was bold for me to do at the time because, I didn't want to share anything, but I didn't want to ask for anything either, right?
Yeah.
I was the mortgage broker that was always trying to cut my commissions down to like 1/4 or 0.5% origination. And the crazy thing is that when I did that, and again, coming from a place of scarcity and that zero sum game that someone has to lose and someone has to win.
Yep.
When I came from that state of mind, it's ironic that they would always shop me. But when I actually started partnering with the other guy, we said, hey, our standard is we just charge 1% origination like the rest of the industry, right? Which is like what you guys do. You guys actually have a little bit more strictness on it, right? But for us, we didn't. And we were like, well, whatever. Well, I was like, yeah, okay, we'll do 1%. The ironic thing is that I got more referrals and better positive feedback charging double or more than what I was charging before, trying to give people the best deal, right? And that was an epiphany for me because I realized it wasn't about, win, lose, that zero sum game. It's actually about creating that win-win type of scenario. Like always, like how do I serve people and show up in a way that we all win, and that's the way the world should be. So even though I teach a lot about passive income and investing and all that kind of stuff, it always comes back to my clients have even said the same thing. They said the biggest difference for their lives wasn't the fact that they made an extra 4, 5, 6,000 a month or more, or 100,000 a year of passive income within the first year or two. For them, it was about simply, how do I become free? How do I become abundant where I feel free and I actually live this life of abundance? That was the thing that for them changed their life. The numbers, we're just a support, but the real change happens internally.
That's great. And when people come to work with you, what's the pathway to working with you, and what is it that you provide? What kind of counseling or coaching or advice do you give? What's the various modes you use?
Yeah, so I have 2 separate branches in my business. I added one after the last time I became financially independent. That is more like around life insurance, infinite banking, if you've heard that kind of thing. But actually using that with real estate investing, where the money pays you twice, you double dip, kind of this double arbitrage, right? So I have this infinite banking thing that I do. A lot of people come to me from YouTube or my podcast on that. Mm-hmm. And then I also have on the other side, like consulting, helping people figure out, map a way to become financially free themselves. I'll tell you, from a business owner's perspective, especially, even though I'd say 2/3 of mine are now like high paid W-2 employees, they're like IT managers, pharmacists, optometrists, dentists, doctors, chiropractors, people like that. Even though a lot of those people come to me, the interesting thing is that the business owners, I find the most fascinating, right? Because with them, I mean, you have control of your income to some level or another, right?
Sure.
But what's so cool is not only having that abundance mindset helps them, but when you start to create passive income streams outside of their business, and I actually said this to John Lee Dumas on Entrepreneur on Fire recently. I said, you create those out, you need multiple streams of income. Like if you have only your practice, if you're like a doctor, dentist, or your agency, right, or your brokerage where you're working as a realtor, if that's all you have, you're trapped. Like you need the money. Every person you talk to, you look at as, hey, I need the money from you. But when you have multiple streams of income coming in that are passive outside of that, it's amazing how you come from a place of power. Because when you show up, you're like, you know what? Honestly, I don't actually have to have you as a client.
That's right.
I don't need
commission breath because I got to come in here and there and here and there.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it from a place of arrogance, because then you just attract the wrong people and you repel the right ones, right? But if you come from a place of like, you know what? I'm good. Like I'm relaxed. I don't need it. I'm confident. I know I'll do a great work for you. I'll serve you. I'll do a great job for you. When you show up that way, it's amazing. When you don't need the money, that's when everybody wants to pay you money. Right. That's when everybody wants to do business with you. It's when you need money the most, that's when nobody wants to do business with you. If you create that freedom, it's huge. You'll make more money all around.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it comes down to, it shows up in banking, when I do my first time home buyer classes and we talk about credit and loans, and banks will lend you money when you don't need it. That's just an operating principle. But that's not even an operating principle of banks. It's how you would lend money to someone you knew. If you knew they were late in paying their money or they couldn't borrow money from anyone else, you'd be less likely to lend them money.
Yep.
It's just, and then there's the energetic, the universal principle that you're speaking to, and the confidence that you put out and all that. It's all tied together. It's really, really good.
And there's got to be certainty around your money too, right? Like you really just like I'm seeing a lot of people right now, they're becoming gamblers and they're calling themselves investors, right? Like I can't tell you how many of my real estate friends are like, I'm doing Bitcoin. This is the time. I'm like, you guys, like you're full of crap. Like real estate alone is amazing. Like that's usually the number one thing I have my clients invest in is buying like long-term rentals, turnkey real estate where they're not the property manager, right? Sometimes it's like apartment syndications or whatnot, or funds around that, or lending, hard money lending in the real estate space. It could be franchises or land, but it's all that kind of stuff. By the way, I'm anti-stock market. I think the stock market is stupid, right? Like I used to teach people how to trade stocks and options, and I would tell all of them that they're not investors, they're gamblers, because they have no control over their investments. They're literally just guessing. It's like, if you ever remember watching Robin Hood Men in Tights, with Mel Brooks movie, like you remember Blinken, the blind guy, he's up on the watchtower. They're like, what are you doing up there? I'm guessing no one's coming, right? It's like, that's what people are doing when you buy in the stock market or in Bitcoin, all this speculative crap. But you've got, like, especially if you're in the real estate game, you've got something amazing. And now it may not be best in your market, your backyard, especially if you're on the western half of the US like I am, like, rentals aren't great. But I buy stuff out in like Alabama or Memphis or North Carolina, and I get great, amazing returns for the price. Like that's the kind of stuff that's exciting to me. Like that's the stuff that's fun. So when you start to do that, and especially if you're a realtor, you should have real estate in your portfolio, and you don't have to have millions of dollars, especially if you're in California, which a lot of my clients come from. They're like, yeah, the rental sucks. I'm like, yeah, they do. I hate California, for more reasons than one sometimes, other than the weather. There's a lot of reasons to not like California. But when you look elsewhere and you start putting your eyes out east, you find so many opportunities. You say, wait, I can buy that for 150, 180,000 and make how much per month? Like I can make especially when you're using leverage with banks, like, wait, I can make 12% cash on cash return, not including any appreciation, not including tax benefits that I make. And basically I write off everything, not including even the fact that they're paying down my mortgage for me, right? Like just those returns of making at least double digit passively is incredible. I love it.
Awesome.
Great. Chris, we really just appreciate your time. Christine, any questions that you wanted to ask that I didn't ask?
No, I love it. I love everything that you're contributing to people. And that is what we want. We want this show to be a contribution to people living an abundant life.
Yeah, very much so.
Very, very, very right.
One thing I always like to ask people is a book recommendation. Anything that you has inspired you?
Well, he said a couple. He said a couple, right?
I did mention Who Took My Money by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a lesser known rich dad book. But I will give you one more that just changed my business completely. And it helped me actually retire that second time, which is called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz.
Mike,
you've heard of Profit First? Yeah.
I don't think I've ever read that one. I'm writing it down.
I love it. I'm big on Profit First. Profit First changed my life. So
Profit First is a great book, especially if you're having a hard time with the finances part. But if you're trying to figure out, like in your business, like what's the most productive activities to give you the max ROI in your business, The Pumpkin Plan is just a great book. Like that mental shift I had changed everything. I went from working 50, 60 hours a week in my business to bringing it down to like 5 to 10 hours a week, making more money than I was working 10 times.
That's great.
Awesome.
Great book.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, Chris, we really do appreciate your time, and you gave it abundantly. And we hope that this makes a difference for everybody else that's listening. And if for those of you that are tuning in, this is the Abundant Life Podcast with Christine Andreasen, and I'm Aaron Hendon, and we really appreciate your time. Can't wait to hear from you. Let us know what questions you have, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Abundant Life Podcast, brought to you by Christine & Company and eXp Realty, the global online brokerage powered by top agents and cutting-edge technology. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Your hosts have been award-winning brokers Christine Andreasen and Aaron Hendon. For more on them, visit christineandcompany.com.